How's everyone doing today? I'm here for another Pokemon Black and White 2 Wi-Fi battle. This is a UU match with a guy by the name of Poke Cheese. I found him on the Smogon Battle Finder, and looking at his team, I could tell that he had a pretty threatening team to mine, particularly things like the Roserade, the Machamp, and the Porygon 2. The Porygon 2 I could tell was going to be pretty bulky to get rid of, and the Roserade was going to be a huge threat to my Swampert and my Milotic. The Machamp would be a pretty good threat to my Ambipom and maybe even my Zapdos. But, you know, I really didn't know what he would lead off with, but I started to think that he would predict my Swampert lead and would go for Roserade, and that is exactly what happened. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. So like I said, he will lead off with his Roserade, and I sort of predicted that. So to counter that, I went ahead and led off with my Zapdos because I figured that I could go for a Heat Wave on it. But he did lead off with his Roserade, and I guess he must have predicted the Heat Wave that I was going to do, but I wasn't going to risk a good chance to take this thing out early, so I did go ahead and stick with it. And plus, I didn't have anything that would be really useful against his Kofagrigus, and out of all things, I didn't think he would switch into his Kofagrigus because I really don't know why. I don't know why in particular that thing. And by the way, I'm going to go ahead and apologize in advance if I mispronounce that. I don't know. That's what it looks like to me, Kofagrigus. But anyway, so he switches out into his Porygon 2. He double switched into it, which was a little bit of a questionable move. Like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but I just didn't know why that out of all things. I guess because he knew it could take a good special move, but yeah, so I don't know why in particular. Like, this guy did pretty well to keep some of his movesets a little bit of a mystery to me until later on in the match, but he goes ahead and goes for a Toxic, and I figured that if I'm going to get anyone Toxic, it might as well kind of be my Swampert, because he's only useful for so long, and he's probably one of the more bulky ones on my team, other than my Milotic, but I wasn't too sure if he was going to go for that or a T-Bolt, so I figured I should go into Swampert, because I was actually more so predicting a T-Bolt, you know, but of course he did go for a Toxic, and I went for the Ice Punch there instead of the Stealth Rocks, because I thought he would change out into Roserade, but he actually didn't, unfortunately, and so that didn't do too much damage there, and I'm Choice Banded, so I couldn't just set up rocks there, so I switched out into my Ambipom, thinking he might would go for a Shadow Ball on me, but he actually just goes for the Rest right here, and so I figured, okay, I don't know exactly what he's going to think that I'm carrying, but he will probably change out to not take whatever I am carrying. So I went for the Pursuit, and later on in the match I get really cocky with Pursuit after this. You know, I use it like 4 other times, and this is the only time that it actually works fully. But he goes ahead and changes out into his Umbreon right here, and I didn't want to take anything that this thing could have, especially a Toxic, which is what I was really expecting. So I go into my Swampert to, of course, take another Toxic, but he just goes for the Heal Bell to wake up his Kofagrigus, which I should have predicted that, honestly. And he goes for the Protect, trying to stall me out really quickly right here. But luckily, I just went for Stealth Rocks anyway, because I don't have any fighting moves on this Swampert, so I really couldn't do anything too big to it. So I figured might as well take the chance to set up Stealth Rocks about a quarter into the match. So I go ahead and change that into my Chandler, excuse me, and he just goes for the Wish right here. So then I started to think that he would probably change out into his Kofagrigus again, and instead of going for a Shadow Ball and possibly over predicting there, I just went into my Ambipom, because see, he actually did switch out into his Porygon 2. He probably thought that I would go for a Shadow Ball or something like that, but yeah, so he gets my Technician boost, which is cool because, you know, I don't think that any of this Porygon's moves really qualify for the Technician boost. And I just go for the Fake Out to see if he would stay in or not, and I go for a Low Kick really quickly because I figured he would stay in, you know, and I really wasn't too afraid of what this thing would throw at me, honestly. I was really kind of afraid of Toxic, but the T-Bolt and the Ice Beam I could take pretty well. Tri-Beam would have been a big hit to me probably, but here is another time where I thought he would change out, and so I went for the Pursuit because my attacks were doing more than his were, so I kind of thought he would change out, but he actually took the opportunity to go ahead and heal up, which I guess was a good move because he could have taken at least one more of my Low Kicks or anything like that. So I go ahead and change back out into my Chandelure, I guess because I was still thinking that he may have Tri-Beam, but I don't think he uses it for the entire match, but he just goes for a T-Bolt, which luckily didn't paralyze me. And I go for the Flamethrower here because I knew he didn't have my Flash Fire ability, since, you know, of course he changed out earlier, so I could go for the Flamethrower, and he just goes ahead and heals up again, and I'm like, this guy's starting to get a little annoying, I'm not even gonna lie, but I just changed into my Swampert though. to go ahead and take a toxic that I was thinking he would go for, because while he's in here, I'm trying to take advantage of that and let him be sort of the status absorber right here. And he changes out into his Machamp, and at this point I was kind of tired of just whoring out my Swampert, so I was actually going to go for physical moves, and with him being Choice Banded and Earthquake actually does pretty well, a lot better than I was thinking actually against this Machamp. Almost knocks it out. Like, he gets a lot of times in this match where he lives with just a sliver of health, like I'm talking barely visible line, but he actually changes out into his Umbreon. I guess I was thinking that he would maybe try to wish and heal someone, but my Earthquake actually does a fairly decent little bit, not quite as much as it did to the Machamp, I don't think, but does a fair little bit against his Umbreon, and I was just planting my feet firmly on the ground. I didn't care what he had, you know, at this point, because I didn't see much of a point in changing out. He goes for the Protect, trying to stall me out, which was also a good move, I guess. That was probably a better move than trying to wish and heal up someone else, but, you know, he just gets his leftovers health from that a little bit as I'm getting my poison damage, and at this point I don't know what he was doing. I guess he was sacking his Roserade, because I guess he thought that the only time it would be useful in this match was to get rid of my Swampert, but I was actually able to just get it out, ironically enough, with my Swampert, because the whole thing about his Roserade is I was so worried that it would be taking out my Swampert, but ironically enough I took it out, so you can... I don't know, that was pretty cool for me, honestly, but like I said, I guess he was just trying to sack it, either that or... hell, I don't even know why else he would do that. But I just went out into my Ambipom, kind of thinking that he would go for the Umbreon and that I could do some stuff to it. So I go for a Fake Out here, lives with that little sliver of health right there. And I'm getting a little bit annoyed right here, and we're both getting a little bit of leftovers health. Like, I don't like Life Orb on Ambipom because he's already a little frail and everything, but he just goes for the Protect to go ahead and get himself some leftovers health, and he didn't really care if I got some leftovers, you know. But and I like having the variety of moves on Ambipom enough to where I don't want to choice band him or anything like that. But I just go for the low kick right here, which will end up finishing off the Umbreon pretty easily. Which I don't really know. I guess he was just trying to hope that maybe I wouldn't know low kick, or that I wouldn't use it, or that I wouldn't kill him or something like that. And I couldn't go for the Fake Out, which probably would have finished off his Machamp here, and I go for a U-turn. Again, sliver of health on this guy. It almost knocks him out, which I really didn't think it would knock him out anyway, but I go ahead and switch out into my Milotic because I wasn't sure if he would go for a bulk up or if he would go for the Dynamic Punch, but I should have realized how little health he had and that he wouldn't go for a bulk up at this point. So I should have went into my Sableye or my Chandelure to be a little safer, but he actually just goes for the Dynamic Punch, which I knew I could take it fairly well with my Milotic, so I wasn't too worried. But I'm actually confused here, and I was really kind of worrying about this one, and I actually don't get the Confuse hacks, and I get a crit right there, of all times. Like, I would have loved a crit on my U-turn, you know, or something like that, but I get a crit on my Scald when it doesn't matter in the slightest there, but whatever. He changes out into his Porygon 2, his Porygon, yeah, 2. I was about to say Z for whatever reason, but I was kind of worrying about a T-Bolt, but I was thinking he would actually go for a Toxic, so I figured if I'm going to get anyone Toxic, might as well be the guy on my team that knows Recover, right? But he actually goes for a T-Bolt, and I'm able to take it pretty well anyway, because my Milotic is bulky as dumps, so, you know, either way, I really wasn't too screwed. And he could have gone for an Ice Beam, which of course wouldn't do crap either, but so he just goes for another T-Bolt right here, and I think I get paralyzed at this one, I do believe. Yeah, okay. And at this point, I'm starting to think that it's game over for my Milotic, right? You know, he's confused and paralyzed, and I was kind of pissed at this Porygon right now. I'm like, get the fuck out of here, Porygon. And I just hit him with my Dragon Tail, and he goes into his Kofagrigus, or that's what it changed him out into anyway, and he just gets his leftovers health a little bit because I don't know, I started to think that his Kofagrigus was more of a bulkier set, like a kind of a support guy, until he used this Calm Mind. You know, the leftovers was making me think somewhat bulky, hit taker, support, miscellaneous, shit like that. So I started to think, you know, this guy could have a couple of things. I was really thinking HP fighting and probably a Shadow Ball were the main two the main two offensive attacks that he would have. And so he just goes for the Calm Mind there, and he goes for the Shadow Ball, which doesn't do that much damage to me because, of course, I'm bulky as dump, as I, you know, reiterated earlier. And I just go for the Recover to take whatever he was going to throw because, like I said, HP fighting and Shadow Ball were the main two things I figured he would have, and I figured that I could take either one of them. So I was just going to Recover to go ahead and get some health up and see what he would do right here. And at this point, I figured, all right, he's going to go for another Shadow Ball, I'm thinking. So I switch out into my Ambipom. I figured he would either go for Shadow Ball or Calm Mind. Either way, I'm good to get a free little change out here. And I had this elaborate plan to get rid of the Kofagrigus, alright? So, you know, I switched out into Ambipom to take the Shadow Ball or Calm Mind or whatever, right? I go for Pursuit here because I figured if he does change out, then it's cool. Probably won't finish him off, but it'll do damn near that. And if he does stay in, then, you know, cool. It'll still do a little bit of damage. Not bad. And I figured he would go for the Calm Mind, thinking that I would stay in here or something along those lines. Which he was true. You know, he did have a good idea going for the Calm Mind right there. But actually, then I started to think, all right, he has 2 Calm Minds up. He's going to go for the HP fighting before I get out of here. So I just go for a nice little U-turn, and I'm like, boom, this Ambipom is now diamonds. And that's basically how I dealt with this. You know, I figured HP fighting was very likely, and then I would be in the clear to change out into my Sableye. And I just go for a Nightshade here, because that's a good move to have on your Sableye, so you don't have to give him special attack EVs. Lives with a little bit of a sliver of a health. I wouldn't really call it a sliver, but just a little tidbit, you know. And he goes for a Shadow Ball, which does a decent little bit of damage. Like, that's the only sucky thing about Sableye. He has absolutely nothing that is super effective against him, but he is fragile as crap, so it's pretty easy to take him out still. But another Nightshade is able to take him out, and yeah, so I was kind of trying to see what he would go for. He would change out into, and he goes into his Excelgor. Even though, like I said, it wouldn't be super effective since I'm Ghost. You know, it would if I was just Dark, but I just go for the Protect to see what he would do and to get a little bit of Leftovers health right here. So I get, I think it was 19 or something like that to be exact. That's how much health I get back, something along those lines. I'm not good at math off the top of my head. But I just go for the Will-O-Wisp here to go ahead and get some damage on him. I knew I wouldn't be too much longer for this world, but I wanted to get in some damage that I figured I could. And I lived the first Bug Buzz, not necessarily fully because of my Leftovers, but it really did help. And so I go for a Protect here, trying to get a little bit of Leftovers health, even though I really didn't figure it would matter at this point if he was going to go for another Bug Buzz, and to go ahead and give him just a little bit more burn damage, you know, stalling him out very slightly. But I don't have any healing moves on this thing, so there really wasn't too much I could do other than take it like a bitch there for a little while and kind of cower behind my Protect screen there really quickly. And then I change out into my Chandelure because I figure that's the only thing on my team that I know can outspeed it, or at least that I would imagine could. But I think he may have been Choice Scarfed, in which case I'm pretty sure he could outspeed my Chandelure pretty easily. But he did a really good move here and changed out into his Porygon 2 because he was predicting a Flamethrower. And he gets my Flash Fire ability, so he's immune to Flamethrower. And that was really good on his part. Like, I wanted to stand up and clap at that, honestly. But I switch out into my Zapdos because I figured that I could take a T-Bolt or whatever else he might would throw at me. I was praying he wouldn't go for an Ice Beam, but I didn't figure he would. I go for the Roost right here because I figured he would go for an Ice Beam this turn, and those can be really, really tough on Zapdos. And so I do that, and he's able to take it really well after that Roost, which, of course, gets rid of my Flying type. So then I go for a T-Ball right here. Did a little bit more damage than I thought it would, honestly, just because of how bulky Porygon 2 can be. He goes for a Toxic right here, which I was kind of glad he did instead of going for Ice Beam or something along those lines, you know, because I was trying to keep my damage at a minimum, and while that Toxic did hurt me in the long run, you know, but he lives with another sliver of health. Like, good God. I'm not saying that I didn't get a little bit of hacks in this match, but that pissed me off how every single time he would live with just a sliver of health, you know, because that one turn can make a difference sometimes. And I go for a T-Bolt here, and I wasn't sure if this was hacks on my part or not, but I ended up getting a crit. I'm pretty sure it mattered a little bit, but still, I'm like, he lived with that sliver of health anyway. I should have killed him that last turn, but whatever. So I live with just 14 health, which I guess this is now my own chance to live with a sliver of health. Stealth Rock damage almost finishes off his Excelgor as he goes for a Bug Buzz. I knew he would outspeed me, and I pretty much knew it was game over for my Zapdos, so I just go ahead and let him die off really quick. And I was thinking the burn damage would kill him, leaves him with probably 1 or 2 health right there. And I let my Ambipom come in and smack that bitch to death. That is the end of this match. I would like to thank you all for watching. Hope you have a nice day, and goodbye, and that was a hell of a crit.